Go.
Hello, welcome to week number 26 maybe of online Sunday school. It must be approaching 6 months, I think. It is bank holiday weekend and we are continuing our story of Moses. So, if you remember from last week, Moses was a baby Hebrew boy. So he's one of the Israelites, the Hebrews that were living in Egypt. Now, the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, did not like so many Hebrews being born because the Hebrews were multiplying. There were so many of them that he was worried that they might form a gang and start threatening his empire. So what he was doing, he had all sorts of measures to try and keep the Hebrews down. So first he forced them into sort of slave labour, oppressed labour, made them do lots of building for very low wages, but they still carried on, they were still successful, still growing as a community. And so then he came up with a really mean plan, and he basically said any Hebrew baby boys, any boys under 2 must be killed, they must be thrown in the Nile. Now you can imagine, poor old Moses' mother didn't want that for her son. So she made him a basket out of reeds and put tar on the bottom so that it would float. And she put her baby in the basket and floated him down the Nile. And from there, Pharaoh's own daughter, one of the princesses, spotted him, pulled him out and decided to adopt Moses as her son and raise him in the palace. And that was where we got up to at Sunday school last week. Now today's reading, things have moved on a bit. And by now, this little baby boy has grown up and is now the beautiful man we see called Moses here. Now, unfortunately, when Moses was a young man, he made a terrible mistake, didn't Moses? Yeah. One day he was out in the fields and he saw one of the Egyptian slave masters. He saw him beating one of the Hebrew men. And he was so enraged because he still thought the Hebrews were his people that he lost his temper and he struck down the man, played by me, and killed him dead. So Moses murdered one of the Egyptian men, which obviously is a terrible, terrible thing to do. Now, Moses was scared of what would happen. He knew people knew about it, and he decided the safest thing for him to do was to leave Egypt and go to a place called Midian. Now, when he was there, he met a lady called Zipporah, and as things do, they got married, and then Moses got a little baby all of his own. And he worked with his father-in-law, and he had a life with his wife and his child, looking after his father-in-law's sheep, which I think you have concealed. Lovely. And things seemed pretty normal, pretty ordinary, nothing unusual going on in Moses' life. But all that was about to change. Because one day he was on a mountain called Horeb. And while he was on Horeb, are you ready for this? He came across a bush that was burning. You ready for the burn? Da, 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 the burning bush. The burning bush. Now, I appreciate this burning bush looks rubbish because it's actually really hard to make a burning bush unless you are God. The best we can do is not this. We decided this just looked too terrible, so we're going to ditch the lights. The best we could do is light our fire pit. So come on over here. And what you have to imagine is that this is not just a fire pit with a bit of old lupin head burning on it. Now it looks like quite a good fire. The lupin heads are quite dry, so I picked it. So the fire looks good. But what Moses saw that day was even better. He saw flames like this, except they were 6 feet high. And they were coming from a green bush that would have looked like this one. Jessie, come over here. So imagine this big green bush, don't come that far, I just meant, let's see. Imagine this big green bush consumed by fire. So there's flames coming all over it. But this bush isn't burning. The flames are in the bush, but the bush still looks green and lovely. It hasn't gone black and manky. Look at my lupins already. Look, they're pretty much gone. They've only been in the fire a few minutes. That wasn't happening to the bush. It looked still green and it was amazing. Now, obviously, this is an incredible sight, and at once, Moses knew something strange was happening. So, he got to his knees and worshipped. And while he was there, he heard the voice of God speaking to him. I'm going out of camera so I can be the God. And the voice of God said, Moses, Moses,
Here I am.
I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have seen how they suffer and heard their cries. I will deliver them out of Egypt and will bring them to a land overflowing with milk and honey. I will send you to Pharaoh.
But who am I to go and see the Pharaoh?
I will be with you. This bush is the sign for you. And when I deliver you from Egypt, you will come and worship here on this mountain.
When I go there, what do I say your name is?
Yahweh, I am who I am. You shall say, I am has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and my title for all generations. So, that's the end of today's reading. But what does it mean? Well, let's pull up a chair, Jim, shall we, while we think about what it means. As always, with every Bible reading, there are 437 things that you could take as meaning out of it. But really, we're going to focus on two main ones today. Number one, God is amazing. That's going to fall over if you sit there. God is amazing. We have just seen how hard it is to make a fire and to burn a bush in it. I've just got a little campfire. The lupins that I put are pretty much gone. There's a little bit of green wood that's going to
Can't even see that they're there.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to see they're there. But God managed to set a whole bush on fire. And he didn't need to destroy it. The reason that the lupins burn is that the fire needs energy in order to keep going. It needs to take something from the plants in order for it to be alive. But with God, God doesn't need energy from anybody. God is the energy. He can create fire without consuming anything at all. He can set an entire bush alight. It's the same God that made the mountain that Moses was standing on, that made this garden, that made this lawn, that made this person. We sometimes forget, because God gives us everything, we forget how amazing he is. He has literally made the moon and the stars and the sun and the heavens and waterfalls and deserts and mountains and lakes, and all good things on the earth come from God. And the burning bush, you go, think about what a burning bush is. It is an amazing feat. We also know that God is an amazing planner. God knew that he was going to need Moses. God, it's no surprise that Moses was picked up by the princess from the Nile. It may seem like a happy coincidence, but God knew that Moses was going to have to go and talk to Pharaoh one day. Moses was going to have to see the king and tell the king to let his people go. Now, ordinary people couldn't go and see the king. I can't just go rock up to Buckingham Palace and say, hey, Queen Elizabeth, I'd like to come and talk to you about a few things. Moses, right from the very start when he was a baby, was in God's plan. So God, the amazing man that makes big things like stars in the heavens, also looks after the small things like Moses, people like me and like you. And we're told in the Bible that God didn't just have a plan for Moses. We're told that God has a plan for everybody. Sorry. Bless you, smoky sneeze. God has a plan for everybody. The prophet Jeremiah, who's a man that lived thousands of years ago, before Jesus came along, who God spoke to, was told by God, I, God, know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. We are told in a number of places that God has plans for Moses and for Jess and for Ginny and for me and for every single one of you that is watching. And we know that his plans are all to establish a world that is fair. God acted here because the world wasn't fair. The Hebrews weren't being treated fairly. God heard their cry. He cares about injustice. He cares about wrong things in the world. And he tries to fix them. But in order to fix them, he needs people. People like Moses and people like you. So this week, over the bank holiday, I want you to think about how amazing your world is and about how amazing you are. Because if you think of it, it's an amazing thing, isn't it? The same God who thought rainbows, mountains, jungle, waterfalls, candy floss was a good idea, also thought, do you know what? The world, do you know what? I've got some rainbow, I've got all the big stuff. Guess what else the world needs? It needs a Jessica. It
Hello.
needs a Ginny. I think as well as Mount Everest and, the Serengeti Desert, it needs a Wendy, it needs an Emma, it needs a Zena, it needs an Esme and a Molly, it needs a Mia, it needs an Emmy, it needs a Melody and a Saskia. So God has got a purpose for everything. The same one who thinks a rainbow's needed thinks you are needed. And we know that God has a plan. So if you're made, if you are so amazing that God decided to put you on the earth, and if you know that God has a plan, your bank holidays task is two things. One, to spend some time quietly and think about how you might help to make the world a better place. What are the things you care about? What are the things that you see that aren't fair? Think like God. Some of you will think the environment, I'm worried about global warming. Some people might think hunger. Some might think poverty. Some might think homelessness. Some might think animals. I don't think animals are treated fairly. But you have a think about the things that you are most worried about and try and think how you can help. So one, your first bit of homework is to think about what you are concerned is and what you're called to do to make the world a better place. The second thing is to celebrate the fact that you are awesome. It's a bank holiday, get the fire going. I've got something that I know Ginny's going to celebrate with. Oh, it's her favourite. We are going to celebrate with some marshmallows.
Oh, I want some.
Hobnobs. I've got one for you, Jess, don't worry. Got one
Yay.
for me. Matt's out, so we've got one for Eve. We've got marshmallows. We've got hobnobs. Think of something that you like to do for you. Think of something that's going to celebrate your awesomeness. Go for a run, go for a bike ride, put some music on, dance around your kitchen, go out and do cartwheels and handstands, run around screaming your head off if you are like. But this bank holiday weekend, make sure you do something for you, because our story today tells us how awesome you really are and how much God really cares for you. So we're going to end our Sunday school with the Lord's Prayer, because we haven't done a prayer this week. And it goes like this. We will say it together, Moses. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
I didn't know which one we were singing, so I waited for you.
She put me on there. I was like, what? Why is she stopping? So, we will finish this Sunday school by having some time. I've got my hair off at Gin today because she fluffed her lines, and this is the second take. So, we are going to put that behind us, aren't we, gorgeous girl? We're going to forgive each other. We're going to eat our marshmallows, and we hope you have a lovely bank holiday. See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.